let's take a quick look at what's going on in that draft already. We've got our first bans coming out here. We've got first ban, first pick going out to Nova Gaming. They ban out Zeratul, a very, very terrifying hero with his cloaky darkness and his void prisons that ruin everybody's plans. 2Arc responds with an Uther ban.
All right, so Zeratul, Uther, nobody wants to see them. Nova is going to take a first pick, Jaina. Now, we've been seeing a lot of Jaina as a first pick potential. She does seem to still kind of be that steady DPS role. Arguably #1 right now in NA.
Yes, she's just so incredibly strong. She's got a lot of really diversity, and not only that, but she kind of works with pretty much any composition. You can even go somewhat triple warrior with her as well, and it kind of works out. So even if they get locked out of many of the other types of compositions that they want to go for, or they see that 2Arc is going for something a little bit cheeky, they can just make Jaina fit into it. So 2Arc responds with a Zagara and a Leoric pickup as their first couple of choices. Keep in mind, of course, we're on Sky Temple, so Zagara very strong here.
Yeah, Zagara with that creep would not only have information control, but the Maw. She's going to be a solid solo laner, very likely in the bottom to start things off. A lot of the time, we don't really see the bottom laners, especially if they're going to be heavy on their laning emphasis like this, who move up to temples. So if she can just maintain her lane, even push it towards the towers, especially past the first temple phase, then you're going to be setting yourself up for a really good second temple phase push.
Right, and the second temple phase is also a really pivotal one because that's also possibly when you hit level 10 as well. It's a really, really important temple phase. Now, they pick up Leoric, who's just really good at his early game potential and just, stays alive even though he's dead. We've got Johanna and Malfurion going to be Nova's pickups as well, which Johanna with Jaina, so incredibly strong. You pick up those condemns, you lock those condemns into blizzards, and that's a lot of damage. Malfurion, just a great pickup in general since Uther is already out.
Yeah, Condemn into Blizzard is definitely a very strong combo to go with this. And as you said, they're still setting themselves up if they want for a double warrior, perhaps even a triple, depending on what 2Arc's about to roll. But as a ban coming out from 2Arc, it does look like they are going to be removing Raynor. So again, Raynor would actually go phenomenal into any kind of double tank setup because of the Inspire.
They also want to make sure that the Raynor's not there because he's really good at kind of shredding tanks, which makes me think that 2Arc is going to go for something a little bit more warrior heavy. In fact, they might even go for triple warrior if they're going to start locking out a Raynor this early. They've got Leoric, and Zagara is an okay backliner for these types of situations. If they pick up a Sonya here, no, okay, so they go for a Kael'thas. So they're not going to go for triple warrior, but they are going to go for probably a double warrior. And Raynor just by himself is really good at zoning those really squishy casters as well. So picking up the Kael'thas here, curious to see what their next pick's going to be.
Raynor's a nice blend of not only the single target damage, especially with auto attack builds, but the zoning, as you said, with the Hyperion. It really does kind of dictate where you can safely stand in a lot of these fights. It's like a Starfall. It's to a degree, it's like a Maw as well, but it's a lot more steady damage. It's avoidable, but it helps you dictate where people can kind of stand very safely. Now, 2Arc, as he said, with the Kael'thas, they are going to finish things off with a Muradin here now as well. So Muradin and a Leoric. For the frontliner, Muradin can be, amongst the tankiest of tanks, and Leoric versus Johanna is always a favorable matchup for Leoric.
Right, and the really interesting thing here is that Muradin's really, really great at just kind of stopping auto attack. So normally when we associate Muradin, we're like, hey, he's going reverb build, he's going to go start taking out auto attacks, but he's also really good at siege damage. They might be going for more of a sledgehammer type build out of this Muradin, since there's not many auto attacks coming out here from Nova Gaming. I'm curious to see what their plan is, but you're quite right. His sustainability is ridiculous. Nova Gaming now up for the next 2 picks.
Now, for maybe perhaps a little bit of the counter zone control, you might see an Arthas come out here, especially goes well with Johanna, Jaina, the double ice magics working together. They do got their support already, so they don't have to technically go for a double. I was curious with the setup of Jaina, Johanna, they might go for an Abathur, but they went for the Malfurion early. And, well, Vala into Arthas will be the last few picks here. So 2 of the backline damage versus 2 backline damagers. And 2Arc, they just got to respond with an Uther. Or not an Uther, with a support. Uther's banned, obviously.
Yeah, the support banned out from Nova Gaming Karazim does lock out a lot of potential for any type of really good play with either Divine Palm or a 7-sided strike. We saw a lot of that today during the EU finals. I'm curious to see what they go for as their backup. Now, we just saw Brightwing come in during the last set of Gamers 2 versus Navi. I don't think it's going to fit here because they don't really have a Kerrigan. They can't go for like phase shield spams or anything crazy. At this point, Rhaegar, makes the best sense, I would say. What about you?
Well, Rhaegar for the big burst healing. I mean, they got two very high hit point tanks by the end of it. Leoric is going to be there, of course, draining his hit points as well. It's also kind of a oh crap button. You know, that safety button to hit for Kael'thas if he does somehow get Zerg down. It looks like they're about to go. I have to actually replace the cable very quickly here. So, Sham 2, final thoughts before we jump in?
I feel like right now I'm really liking 2Arc's general composition except for the Rhaegar, but overall I think Nova's got the superior composition for this map. Now Kael'thas and Zagar are really good on this map, but I always have to hand it off to Avala just because I feel like she's just one of those sleeper picks that not many people really love except for really in the Korea or China region. And I feel like her win rate, I'm not exactly sure what her win rate is mathematically, but I always feel like whenever I see Avala on a team, it's always a team that does really well in terms of damage. And matching her up with the Jaina, that's a lot of damage to go through. And potentially too much for Rhaegar to actually burst heal out. Remember, he's only got Ancestral. Past that, he's got Chain Heal. And Chain Heal is really good, but it's got actually a somewhat long cooldown until level 16 when you get Tidal Waves. So I'm kind of curious to see how both these teams are going to pair up against each other. Pretty moderately matched, but I just have to hand a little bit of a favor over there to Nova Gaming.
Yeah, Nova with the Jaina Vala definitely feels like that they got the better of the consistent damage. I mean, Zagar doesn't exactly have huge bursts, whereas KO can. But Vala has always been a mainstay damage dealer here in Heroes of the Storm. And Jaina, of course, is kind of the queen of bursts, which again, like I was thinking perhaps an Abathur, but as we saw, it didn't go that way. Now, another advantage that Nova Gaming has over 2Arc is they have the possibility of a mule.
Yes, the mule is a really strong possibility here. But I don't know, going for that mule is a little bit risky. Both these sides have a lot of crowd control. I don't know if you want to sleep on a cleanse pick.
Yep, no, you're quite right on that one. Now, cleanse has been nerfed a little bit. Yeah. And when it comes to a lot of the team fights here, especially with melee assassins these days, Kerrigan's, for example, you almost always see that cleanse. But, you know, in this case, it's just really Gravity Lapse and Murden to kind of slow you down from Nova Gaming. And if you can play around that a little bit, Arthas can get Relentless, for example. Johanna has Unstoppable herself. I think you could get away with it.
It's possible. It's very true. I mean, yeah, you're right. The cleanse has taken a bit of a nerf, but Relentless is actually pretty nice. The Relentless that it gives you for that little period afterwards. But let's take a look at how these things work empirically as we jump on into the match. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at our left-hand side. We've got Nova Gaming in the blue. We got Hakfu, Boss, Floss, Killick, Basics, and Nesper.
And on the flip side, of course, Sunshine, LZ, Trader, Insomnia, and Crone. And they're going to be representing here 2Arc Gaming as we're bunching up here in the mid for our kind of death push through the mid. Will anybody die for the eye? Well, you hopefully not, but hey, both teams are running for it now.
That they are. We already see Boss Floss and the rest of Nova Gaming grabbing that eye, and they will be able to have that vision ward for a good amount of time here, at least for now. I feel like their early game presence is a little bit scarier just because they've got that Arthas in there, and early game Arthas I feel like is just such a terror.
He can be, but by himself, well, putting the Arthas into the bottom lane up against Crone is probably the best bet. He's very self-sustaining. He can do some decent wave clear, and he can take care of the creep when he has the chance pretty much for free. I think it's 15 mana just to turn it on and off again.
Also helps when you get those Howling Blasts in immediately. The Hydralisk doing a good amount of damage though, so he's probably going to just flee for a couple of seconds, wait for that to despawn, and then go right back on in. But meanwhile, on the top lane, we've got the triple setup here of Sunshine, LZ Gamer, and Insomnia going up against Boss Floss, Basics, and Hakfu. And that's generally what we see in these situations, just because when the first temples spawn up, it's mid and top. So you want to have the most amount of pressure in that top lane. That's the one that allows you to be very flexible in going to either the middle or the top shrine. Sorry, top temple.
Okay, so as I was looking at something, Arthas will actually go down into the bottom lane for first blood. Crone has used that creep to his advantage. Didn't get out of that unscathed, but there's nobody here to rotate bottom lane, and you can see already that level advantage starting to accrue. And again, Crone very likely not to be leaving that bottom lane anytime soon. He's going to try to force someone down here. They already have that level advantage. Level 4 is going to be on the horizon, so temples, as long as LZ Gamer and crew kind of just drag it out a bit, will go to their favor.
Right, both these temples coming on up here. We can already see that we've got Nova Gaming trying to go for a huge push there in the top temple. Curious to see how that's going to go. Already it's become neutralized. And we've got Sunshine taking a good amount of damage. Boss Floss being very aggressive with his positioning with Hakfu in short behind him, trying to do as much damage as possible. And they are going to be able to ward them away. What happens in the mid?
Well, the mid is just, they swapped. It's going to be Arthas and Trader, but they kind of been dancing around each other. They haven't really been putting a lot of emphasis on those tempos. Trader's just been bullying around Killick more as a priority. Top is still kind of going fast and furious, though. His boss is going to get basically just shoved off that point.
Right, Sunshine yet again being such a great, huge disturbance between the teams of Nova Gaming and 2Ark, and just love the amount of damage he's been able to soak. Has not actually gone down, which is really impressive to take that much damage and still stay alive. Unfortunately, can't say the same for their Rhaegar player. That's going to be Insomnia going down there in the top, and they still keep this middle shrine.
Yeah, Trader has actually had very favorable matchups mid. I mean, Nesper kind of rotated to the bottom to try to soak up against Crone, and then they put Killick there. But Killick versus Leoric, I mean, there's nothing to do once the Spooky Hand starts. He can't unstoppable out of it. He's going to be slowed anyways. Trader just was able to bully him around. They swapped again, but because of that, there was just so much downtime on this temple that overall, I think the shots went pretty even. Top gate is gone, mid gate is gone, so no, it's actually red coming out pretty much flying colors.
Yeah, 2Ark is also looking in a really good position right now in terms of experience. They're about to hit level 7. We've got level 4 talents coming in here. Nothing too crazy has come in, but Crone getting engaged upon now by Nesper in the bottom lane, doing a good amount of damage on Crone. A little bit of multi-shot with Arsenal is going to power up that multi-shot from the level 4 talent, but it's not going to be enough to take out Crone. He's able to disengage. They pick up the Siege Giants to get a little bit of pressure here in this bottom lane.
All right, so there's the level 7 talents. And yeah, the pressure has been real. Crone's already taken a tower down here by himself as well. Remember, he wasn't part of those temples. He did force somebody to come down here for the defense, but the defense just did not hold. And now, as you can see, 3 are setting up as well. So again, Crone has done his work into the bottom lane early. Now, with the level advantage going in, it's not the biggest, but top is going to be pushing, and bottom's going to be a big focus here for 2Ark, because if they can get that temple, or at least majority of the shots, they're setting up for a very easy first fort.
Level 7 coming in here for Nova Gaming, as well as picking up their own Siege Giants. It's going to be the war of the Siege Giants going back and forth here. The Siege Giants have been cleaned up by 2Ark. That's going to give them a little bit of pressure down here in the bot lane. And we've got some searing attacks going in there for the Vala. Rune Tap, Frostbitten, Sins Exposed, and who called it? Who called it? It was none other than FourCourtJester called the Mule coming in here.
I mean, it's going to be the Mule or the Cleanse. Enduring Growth just does not see a heck of a lot of play these days. But this is a very strong map for Mules as well. And, Basics is going to need every drop of it to kind of keep this bottom going. Now, there's the temples. Red already in full force. 4 of them down here. They just picked up their bruisers. Both sides have actually got them rolling. LZ is going to come down. But again, the map position just favors 2Ark so much right now.
It really does, and we can already see that 2Ark is already taking that map position to have this temple under their control. It's starting to just wail away now on the giant Anubis statues that do fend off the players from capturing that temple. Boss Floss trying to come in here, trying to do as much damage as possible, but Trader's got those spooky hands to draw a little bit of life back from him. Meanwhile, we see 2Ark take a little bit more of a defensive position for the next couple of seconds, seeing what they can do with this objective.
And remember, they're also level 9 compared to 8. That 10 is going to be on the horizon if this draws out for too much longer.
That's right, and that level 10 is going to be able to change this fight very easily once they pick up those heroics. But for the time being, they're still just staying offside the temple. This is a really smart decision. They want to make sure they have the 5 full fighting force of their hero squad to be able to fend off Nova Gaming before they actually try and go pick up that temple. You don't want to have somebody sitting down there and go into a 5v4.
Yeah, and Sunshiny hits the well. They still have that entire base into the bottom lane, whereas we don't have a well possibility here from Nova. So they are going to have to back off out of this one. There's that Mule to waste as many shots as they can, but all 2Ark has to do is push in a bit. They are going to suffer some soak in the other lanes, but they should get this temple, or they should get this fort.
You're right, and with these heroics as well, now Basics is taking a good amount of damage. He is going to fall. Now we are starting to see a Howling Blast to help the disengage there from Boss Floss. And he will be able to get out of there, but for the time being, you're quite right. That that fort is going to fall here. Level 10 has been secured by them by quite a bit. In fact, almost about to be level 11. And their opponents are struggling to get level 10 themselves.
All right, Phoenix, we got the Avatar, Devouring Maw, Ancestral, and of course our March of the Black King. LZ into the top lane. The Howling Blast, it's not enough to actually solidify that kill. He will get out with the skin of his teeth, but they are going to now suffer some uncontested push from Nova Gaming into this top. They're looking for that 10 as quick as they can, and this split is about to make that happen.
I love the idea there from Crone to go in from the bottom side of the mid fort and just poke away with his little creeps and little critters in order to take down that fort, because the rest of the temple shots there were able to secure that fort. So that's a double fort for one temple. Great play coming in here from 2Ark. And we're trying to see how Nova's just trying to decide what they want to do here. Unfortunately, they're starting to fall a little bit behind.
Just a bit. Two levels means that they're still on the same talent tier, but it's not going to be that way for ever. They're about a level and a half down. Now they could actually make a play for boss, but with so much creep around, I mean, look at all this creep going uncontested. This is all vision going for 2Ark. They know that, of course, the siege giants were just taken. There's obviously a force from Nova into the bottom lane. The 5-man push top is yielding some really good results as because of that.
Killick does throw down a Howling Blast yet again to just try and ward them away for the time being, but we start to see Creep Chambers really encroaching on every little aspect of their life. Everywhere they go, they see this little purple glue all over the floor. And that's gotta be incredibly frustrating, because it's really just like a very big visual indicator of how just advantageous your opponents are over you. We see Boss Floss trying to go in there with a huge condemn. LZ Gamer going to get rooted. A huge Ancestral is going to keep him alive for the time being, and we see Boss Floss now getting turned around. Got a lot of damage going down, but Crone is actually going to be the first one to fall. At the same time, though, we see Boss Floss falling in the back end. Insomnia trying to go toe-to-toe with the Lich King. Is it going to work out? He will disengage, picks up the fountain, comes back into the fight. We see Arthas falling now, and we see Trader being hyper-aggressive onto basics, but will fall for that aggression.
Wow, I'm actually really impressed that Hawkfu saw Sunshine going around that corner, stopped him in his tracks, also stopped that passive from proccing. Now LZ, very healthy, not exactly a lot of mana though. I believe he actually went back and hit that well because he was really low on it. But as it turns out, I believe it's what, a 2-for-1 trade in favor of Nova.
And they get a favor out of it, but FourCourt, we're starting to see, yeah, I mean, but I would say it helps them out quite a bit. The only thing is that we're seeing 2Ark now come out of this with level 13, and not only level 13, but we see objectives coming up as well.
Yeah, and 2 sets of temples means we're likely to just be trading out 1-1. We also now got these bruisers set up for the top push, so the mule is going to be working as hard as he can into here. But, you know, with this red big push coming in top, they get enough for the temple. They're going to leave the bruisers to it, and they want to contest.
That they do. They go immediately in here on Killick, throwing down that Stormbolt. Sunshine trying to look for some sort of angle.
Well, remember, it's level 13 here from 2Ark. They have a huge advantage going into this, and so far, Nova has no choice but to retreat. Look at that chain bombs, Sham2 right there. Basics and Hawkfu just get immediately chunked down. Now we got pressure top. Now we actually have the possibility of stealing out the boss, perhaps, and leaving the temples around.
Yeah, that's actually a really good call. They might be able to just keep this pressure alive, but it'd be a little bit risky if they were to go for boss. And we can see the Nova is just trying to look for any type of angle they can. But at this point, they are a little bit behind. They still don't have that level 13. That's a pretty massive talent advantage. That's why they had to disengage before. And if we see 2Ark continuously run around and try and re-engage, there's just no hope for them to pick up any of these temples.
Oh, Boss Floss so low. It's really hard to kill that Johanna with that through that unstoppable. But again, like, so far it's just been ping pong activity. 2Ark is keeping an iron fist on these temples. Top lane has drained out a lot of that ammo. There's that mule working away from basics once more, but the bottom was abandoned. Now it's going to be the mid. The last of the shots are now out. 2Ark is going to actually intercept here. Level 13. Nova thinks they can take this.
And I think that they are on the same talent here, so that's going to be a good call for them. Go for that 13 to 15 fight, because the next level is going to be really rough for them. The Water Elemental is taken out in the back line, but Sunshine is continuously trying to do as much damage as possible. Basics with the Living Bomb is going to go down. The Ancestral going down on Insomnia. Sunshine taking a good amount of damage. The Strafe doing massive damage as it catches 4 of the heroes of 2Ark, and now 2Ark is on the flee. But we see the return onto Vala to be able to pick up that takedown. Insomnia trying to be aggressive because he's the only one who's above half health, but they have to back up for the time being. They've got another temple. They've got such a massive advantage.
As long as you can pick up what I'm taking down, my friend, that is a good team right there. So, you know, fight going back and forth, 2-1 though. I mean, Basics made a really good call. He had that Living Bomb. He realized that the team was low. He was going to die anyway, so he just kind of went straight out of the Compton in that regard. But Rhaegar, he's actually going to be down. This contest from 2Ark is a little bit too much for these guys to handle right now.
Nova almost had that fight. It was a 3v2, but it just did not work out in their favor. Hawkfu is the only one to be able to get away from that, as they lost a lot of members trying to get that. They also lost the siege camp itself, so that did not really work out in their favor. 16 now for 2Ark, and they pick up all their 16 talents and just I can only imagine the aggression coming out there from the Nova side, which is great, because anything associated with Nova kind of deserves it at this point.
Well, typically you don't see the Nova coming, but even Nova Gaming has got here into the finals, so they've definitely done their homework, and they've definitely been in the spotlight a little bit. Perhaps that will be their downfall as we go into this one. Still so much creep on the map here from Zagara. I mean, it's basically a huge highway all the way from the eye into the top, all the way to the bottom lane. I mean, that movement speed is a great escape mechanism. It's also showing a huge marker on this map. It says you can't go past here without us seeing you. And so far, I mean, everything has been pushed up against Nova Gaming these last few team fights. The temples using the level advantage to just kind of ping pong and keep them under control. And even now, like, we just finished that bottom temple. It's going to be a while until the next ones come to fruition.
You know, it's also really just great to see how just incredibly in control of the map 2Ark is. That line on that of the creep isn't on the halfway mark. It's not on 2Ark's side of the map. It's on Nova's side of the map. It's so incredibly aggressive and shows just how in control 2Ark's been this whole entire game. Now we're starting to see that, you know, Nova's trying to poke out. They're trying to do something, but can they do anything at this point?
Well, they're level 15, about to be 16, so no, they're going to be passive. They're going to wait for their level advantage to actually equalize, so that, you know, 16, 17 is not the worst fight, but 17, 15 is almost just asking for it. There is only one temple coming up, and there's no mercs really on the side of 2Ark that are in danger kind of going their way, but as you can tell right here, they're going to use that map advantage to just quickly take down this boss, and I think they might actually have it. They saw Boss Floss into the top lane, and they're not going to be in position to kind of argue with this boss.
The boss is going to get captured. The temples are about to spawn in the next 5 seconds, and already we see Nova trying to be some sort of intimidating force in order to try and drive away 2Ark, but it's just not going to work out. The boss is helping them keep this presence in the bottom lane. They don't even have to worry about going with the temple just yet, because they can potentially get a massive win here chasing down Nova Gaming.
Whoever wins this fight can take the temple, but if it's 2Ark, they can just take the game. So yeah, I mean, this is a brilliant kind of push. There's been such a lack of emphasis on the temples. It's kind of refreshing to see more strategy coming into it, not just using them.
A huge ball does go down there onto Killick. They throw down the Phoenix on top of it, but Killick is not the greatest of targets. It is Arthas, who has so many different abilities to stay alive for so long. All they need to do is to lay out the team in order to let this boss do as much damage as possible. And guess what? Because of how much damage that boss does, they run all the way back to the temple. They capture the temple for a couple of seconds, and that's going to be a dead keep. Now, they do have a mule on that keep, and it's going for the tower first. So that gives it a little bit of alleviation of that damage. But I don't know if it's going to be enough here, FourCourt.
Yeah, Trader's there right there in the front line. He's presenting himself as the big target to hit. And Sunshine, he gets enough shots for the keep, and now he's going to join the fight.
Yeah, they take down the keep, and already they jump on in here. Bastic now using the Tranquility to keep Boss Loss and Hakfu alive. Killick in the front line, taking a good amount of abuse here from Crone and LZ Gamer. But Boss Loss is still going to fall. Here comes the Arsenal from Nesper to turn around a little bit of damage, but it's just not enough. We see the whole front line get absolutely melted away there from Crone, and that is going to allow for the rest of Nova Gaming to get picked apart here by 2Ark. There's an ice block coming in here, but Basics gonna have to go back to basics as he goes down here from 2Ark. Hakfu now gonna be the next one to fall. The Living Bomb, just too much damage with a Stormbolt to add into it. And the core is now open for 2Ark to assault it.
Yeah, 4 down. They don't need a tempo at this point. The boss did its work, and Nesper, the only defender. I mean, we're gonna have people up in 8 seconds. I don't think it's gonna be enough. It's gonna be the double tank, and that will be GG for game number 1 as 2Ark takes their first match here in the in the quarterfinals of the Go4Heroes monthlies.
So much congrats to 2Ark for the first win of the day, but can they keep it up? I believe this is a best of 3, so they've got to go through at least one more. Can Nova Gaming turn it around?
All right, let's see if I actually hit the right button. 2Ark Gaming. Yes, I hit the right button. Nice. Just a really nice comp out of them. I mean, the control of the Mirrodin they had as well. I mean, that Zagara kind of going back and forth through a lot of not only harass, but her lane pressure was very immense. As you saw earlier, she was able to get an early kill that kind of catapulted them in their experience by almost a full level early on. And then from there, I mean, they get the setup for the second temple, and then from there, they just weren't really touched. 12 kills to 5. and a level 1917 advantage. It was a very, very smooth game from 2ark.
If you really looked at both of the team fights that really kind of turned the whole entire team around, or the whole entire game, or just kept it, I guess I should say, in 2ark's favor, you really notice that just the ability to melt through the tanks was a lot more important to 2ark than it was to Nova Gaming. And that's kind of, I guess, a little bit more of Nova's MO in terms of actually being a hero as well. You want to go for the squishies in the backline. But what 2ark did was they just had Crone and LZ Gamer just sit there and wail away on the front line of Nova Gaming, and those were always the first two people to fall. We always saw Killick or Boss Floss be the first two to fall in those team fights. And you saw that Nova Gaming was trying to go for some of the more juicier targets, the ones that weren't Traitor, because obviously taking down a Leoric is really difficult. And it just didn't work out so well. It didn't really pay any dividends. They just did not have the ability to get through that line in order to take out Crone and LZ Gaming.
No, it's true. I mean, there's not much to say about focus the tank strategy because it doesn't work in pickup play. It doesn't work in Hero League. But when it comes to this coordinated team fights, I mean, they had a Malfurion. That was a big punish there as well. Rhaegar versus Malfurion. Rhaegar will always win in a single target heal. Malfurion's great for the multi-target and the sustained fights, but if you can snipe out one of those tanks, if you can bring them really low, they're not going to be the front line anymore. They're going to be sounding the retreat, which means either you now become the front line because you're not moving, or you're retreating with them, and that gave a lot of power there to 2ark. The zone control, Kael'thas, and the chain bombs just worked out especially well. Between the Johanna and the Arth, there's a lot of, kind of clump up damage for free, essentially. And Zagara with the bouncing Mutalisk. I mean, everything kind of came together very nicely.
They did some really good work in game number 1, and they had such great map control. I'm curious to see how game number 2 is going to look. I mean, we saw already just with that Zagara, we brought it up, and I wanted to bring it up again, that Creep Highway.
Yeah.
It's like a giant sonar map of basically like you walk over this, and I know where you are, I know where the team is. And we saw that happen a couple of times, too. Boss Floss was up in the top lane doing something, and all of a sudden they're like, all right, here's our call, go for Boss. They made these really good snap decisions, and it's always just because it's the game of war. You need to have that information to know what the best decision is, and 2ark was just making some great decisions that I don't think Nova had the ability to really respond to.
All right, so on that note,